Creative Magic Club. What's up? This is Sarah Mack and welcome to Creative Magic Club. Together, we'll discover inspirational stories of creative entrepreneurs living out their dreams, doing the work they are most passionate about, and building wealth in magical and fun ways. While building a six-figure income as a writer and coach, helping other women to launch their dream businesses, I've connected with so many incredible people and seen it proven again and again that you can thrive financially doing whatever it is you are passionate about. I am here to share life-changing strategies for mindset, making money, and reaching more people with your work in a business and life filled with creativity, freedom, and fun. Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to introduce my guest this week. We have with us Lili Stiefel, who is the founder of The Mix Space, which is a community organization focused on celebrating intersectional identities. You can find them on YouTube, Instagram, and join in the monthly meetups to participate in the conversation. Hi Lili, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi Sarah, thank you so much for having me.
Super excited to talk to you today. Why don't we kick it off with you telling us your story? How did you come to founding and running The Mix Space?
Thank you. Yeah. So I was born on a military base, Beale Air Force Base in California, to an interracial parents, to my white mom and my Black dad. And I moved to Germany when I was 4. And so pretty much my whole life has been like navigating different spaces and navigating different cultural spaces, different linguistic spaces, like literally different continents. And being an artist as well, being someone who is trained as a storyteller, someone who is interested in expressing herself and as an artist is very connected to community and collaboration and community building. The Mix Space kind of just naturally came out of me into this amazing global community that we get to experience on a monthly basis now. So pretty much, and there's like steps, there's institutionalized steps that happen to create it into the way that it is now. It's a company, we work on Zoom, it's like it has a whole setup because it pretty much started when I was in undergrad for my directing degree. And I decided to make a thesis play. And I didn't want to direct anyone else's work. I was like tired of people telling me what to make. I was tired of using other people's words and putting my ideas onto something that existed already. I wanted to be part of creating something and I wanted to tell my story, but also direct it at the same time. So I was going in between of creating something, but then stepping out of it and molding something that was outside of me. And I interviewed 6 women who are artists and creatives in their own right and about their experiences growing up and about their memories. And we used their verbatim text and fleshed it together to make a script and we put that on stage. And so that was like the first time that this environment was created. And after school, we went on a retreat and we figured out what this could be. And we started The Mix Space and that is kind of my story. That's how it all came to happen. And it was just really important for me to be able to build community with people who speak different languages, who know what it's like to navigate flying from one country to the other or having family in multiple places and trying to figure out how to fit in and constantly asking well, who am I and where do I take up space and how do I navigate my privilege and what does being, a global citizen mean politically? How do I connect myself when I feel like I'm kind of everywhere and then nowhere at the same time? And for a while, it was really crazy making to be in my body. And I kind of felt like, oh, I'm the only one. I think sometimes a lot of us feel that way. And it became really clear that that's absolutely not the case. And if I did feel that that's a constructed narrative that is there for us to stay apart. And so the work actually really is to come together and to share and to ask questions and to just be able to understand, okay, we don't know everything. We're not always going to say the right thing because there's so many different people in the space together. But we have to keep talking. We have to keep figuring out how to build the world that we want to see. So
I love this conversation so much. And, I think it's something that I'm sure like more and more people are able to resonate with as globalization just grows and, borders become more and more irrelevant for, obviously the people that have the privilege to be able to cross the borders. I'm curious, from these conversations that you've been having, what are some of the kind of key like advantages and disadvantages that seem to show up across everybody's experiences?
I think the advantages, like the skills essentially that are being built, and some people call them even superpowers, is the capacity to be able to consider where people are coming from a multitude of perspectives, to really hold that space in our body, to understand that like our DNA is essentially like a historical bridge, and that there's stories inside of us that have previously not had the space to come out. And for me personally, there's a real sense of responsibility that comes from that, understanding that I do have all this knowledge and all these weird marriages of histories inside of my body, which essentially we all do. That's really where it's about, like finding out where we come from. And that doesn't just mean like where my parents separately are from, but like what's my ancestral lineage? Like what's my spiritual lineage? Like where do I come from? What's my purpose here? And what does that mean when I'm in this body? And I think we are all asking ourselves these questions to varying degrees. And so, it's very rich, and definitely the empathy and the capacity to connect is a huge superpower. I think what a lot of people, we're talking about superpower. I think human beings are so powerful. This, like you do work on human power all the time. And, I think what can happen to people who maybe don't grow up in a very steady situation where maybe all the people around them look the same and there isn't necessarily a lot of friction between culture, that there's this idea of like, oh, I know who I am and I know where I belong. And I think that can create a sense of comfort, which a lot of people who have what I call like layered identities and mixed identities, maybe it might be easier for some of us to fall into a false idea that, oh, we're not enough, or we're half this and half that, or I don't fit in here because I look different, or I speak different, or my hair is a different texture, or I have an accent, or I speak multiple languages and I don't master one of them as much as the other people around me. And so we start comparing. And I feel like the human brain, when we compare ourselves, we always come out less than the people we compare ourselves to. It's just kind of a mistake that our brains keep making. When we don't fit into what we see, we think that there's something wrong with us, and it's completely not the case. But I think overcoming that is a challenge that everyone has. But I think that mixed people and focused people who don't have the choice to look at themselves in this way might be struggling with more.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic. And I feel really lucky that, that when I immigrated, I ended up in Canada first, because it's one of those countries that, immigration is required to sustain the population. And Canadians are just the most welcoming, like down to earth, friendly people. And I really got to experience being, my difference was really celebrated from the offset. And I know I have like so many privileges that I come with and that I was born with as well. But I know I've heard that story has been true across like all different types of immigrants, especially they're very welcoming to refugees as well. And that's one of the things I love about Canada, is it is so multicultural and its borders are so open. And like more than that, I think immigrants are very well integrated into the culture and into the society, because it is so welcoming. And, you know, obviously it still has its issues, but I you know, feel very lucky to have had that experience of having my difference celebrated, and also living in spaces like Montreal where there's a lot of international students and people who are very curious and, you know, like interested in speaking to people from different places. And I really got to experience like the real gold from diversity, where people are really genuinely open and creating space for people's differences, asking questions, like really celebrating everybody's differences. Because, you know, we would have dinner parties where every single person around the table was from a different culture and spoke a different language. And I know certain spaces are like that. Like you and I met in New York, and that's another one of those places. And then I've also experienced going to places where people aren't so open to people who are different. And I've been able to experience that as well, where I just, you know, was ignored because people didn't know how to communicate with me. They weren't really interested, and they just saw me as weird and different because I talked with a funny accent. And so, you know, I've had like a few of those different experiences, and I just wish everybody got to be able to experience like the true amazingness that happens when we really connect to the benefits of diversity, when we really open ourselves up to those conversations. And and comparison. I feel like the opposite of comparison is the celebration of diversity, and is curiosity and celebration of difference over comparing from like a what's better. But there's all there's all these parts of us which are just super tribal, and there's just parts of our human body that feel safer when we're with people who understand who we are. And it triggers specific reactions when you go back to, say, the land where you were brought up on, just like the smells and the scents and things that are familiar to you from your childhood or that you've connected to on a physical level. So I'm curious, like how you navigate that now, and having, you know, grown up and lived in and formed your identity in so many different places. I know you love to travel and that you're in Germany at the moment, but how do you feel like, obviously this has become something that's more conscious for you as you've explored this topic. But did you find yourself responding in terms of like urges to travel to specific places or urges to connect with certain types of people kind of simultaneously as you have been growing up and like navigating this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I feel like, so I actually have the opposite. I travel a lot, but I very rarely have the real urge to travel, because moving is just such a natural part of my life that if anything, the older I get, the more I start to develop the urge to stay in a place for longer, the urge for stillness, really. But, you know, I mean, a friend asks me to go to LA, or like, I live in Frankfurt, and it's a 3-hour train ride to Berlin, where I work a ton and I have a lot of friends. So it's just like moving from city to city, or like getting in the plane and flying to New York and being in my New York apartment, and going to see my aunt in New Orleans, or like going to see my aunt in Miami. It's like even all those places come with their own very unique history, their own unique cultures, their own unique, like almost like dominant minority in a sense. There's kind of, every place has a touch of something that is just like automatically taken up with wherever I'm going, and the family really that I'm visiting there. So I am actually intentionally starting to travel more as a real tourist. Like, I'm not a tourist very often because so much of my travel is my normal life. So and I am doing that, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Most of the time when I do get to travel as a tourist, I go to Africa, because that just feels important to me. It feels important to explore there, because Europe is so native to me in a sense. And South America is a place that I haven't really been to at all yet. And luckily, I hopefully have many, many years ahead of me, knock on wood, to go explore that. But yeah, I can definitely feel it. Like, the air is different. The water tastes different. My body kind of changes a little bit based on the foods that I eat, the spices that are on the food, like, or in the food. And it's kind of just like, it's kind of, the body kind of just like goes, okay, all right, we're here again. We're here now. I get it. I know where we are. And I'm learning how to optimize, adjusting to many different places. So yeah.
Yeah, I love this conversation because it's something that I think about a lot, and my partner and I talk about, and I know a lot of people in my community who have that passion to travel, you know, regardless as to our upbringings. And then I think it's just a common conversation of like our generation, because we do have a lot of freedom to travel and, you know, to work in multiple different places too. Like we're figuring out ways to navigate that. And particularly when people travel, like my partner and I obviously are from completely different places. We met in a place that wasn't our home. And there's a lot more relationships that are like that, where people are from different countries and then having to navigate the immigration process. And then, you know, like the idea of home is very disrupted once that starts to happen. And then so that kind of opens you up. And particularly in America too, like it's such a big country. Even if people are from America, they can end up living hundreds of miles away from their family, but they're still kind of in their home country, but can be in a completely different place and feel very far away from their roots. And so that kind of just blows the whole thing wide open. It's like, well, where do we live? Like, where's the best place to live? And do we want to settle down? And is that a thing? And kind of going through waves of, I want to live everywhere and I want to like explore and see the world and live everywhere for a little bit, versus like really seeing, you know, how like the benefits of having established communities and being able to come back and land where people will just kind of like make you dinner and you can relax and be yourself with your people, rather than having to, you know, like build communities from scratch, which takes a lot of time. And nothing replaces time invested when it comes to relationships, right? And so I'm curious, like, what your perspective is for like your future. Do you think, are there particular places that you feel really connected to, that you want to, you know, continue to like establish a presence there? Is there anywhere that you have in mind that you'd like to kind of put down more permanent roots? Like, how are you navigating that conversation?
I'm currently working on building roots inside myself and becoming more comfortable in the home inside myself, and letting my body let me know what the next phase is going to be and what the next place is going to be. And I think at the moment, and probably the next few years, it's not going to be a location externally from me. It's really about deepening the location internally. Because I think what you're talking about before was kind of the world inside of me. That's how I felt what you were saying. It's like the world inside of me in terms of like me and my lover and my partner and my family and like my wishes and my dreams and my desires and my capacity and possibility. And so the other side is me in the world. And as I travel and as I navigate spaces, I'm just faced with some truths about the world, about anti-Blackness being a thing that exists everywhere in the world, about how privileges work, ableism, colorism, texturism, all of the privileges, and how the choice that I have a choice of where I want to go, when I want to go, that inherently it creates such a disparity between me and even most of the people that I interact with and most of the people that I love, that really I know that I can't be free until we're all free. And so for me, my work is like I'm becoming so much more political inside of me, and the desire, the need to follow my needs and build a world that is based on freedom is really my driving force. And so I think I'll probably end up in a place where I feel like I can do my work, I can participate in a community and do the best that I can to keep emancipating, while also not building a family possibly, or building a life that feels like I can keep my body safe and I can keep my nervous system safe. And so what that looks like, if it's in a city or not, if it's in nature or not, if it's in Europe or not, I don't have clarity about that yet. And yeah, I mean, I think about it a lot too, when it comes to being in a relationship and romantic relationships. And, you know, not everyone maybe has a job that they're willing to just give up, or they're willing to be virtual all the time. Like some people really like going into an office, or they own a cafe or something that really ties them to their work that they might even be passionate about. So a lot of things are open in the air. And I think, yeah, I'm just kind of letting it happen.
I love that. And I really identify with what you're saying about that connection to yourself and feeling your roots wherever you are. And that came up for me after traveling a lot these past few years as a digital nomad, and starting to feel a sense of instability as a result of that. And really shifting, well, first of all, like recognizing how much I do get and depend on relationships. And at the same time, learning to kind of adopt this mentality that the earth is my home, and that I think really what you're talking about is like in order to serve others, in order to create change and to be of service and to enable freedom for others, like that comes through self-empowerment first, and being able to, regardless as to what is going on around us, knowing how to take care of ourselves and knowing how to create that feeling of safety, knowing how to listen to our needs and to create ways to provide for our own needs, so that we can build that strength wherever we go, to be able to show up with more strength. And ultimately, I think that comes from being able to have that conversation with others, and being able to support others to be able to create that for themselves, right? Is that kind of what you see as kind of the most powerful focus of your work?
Yeah, I do think that, both in my coaching work and in the mixed space. I think that's just who I am as a person. That's in my art, that's in my relationships and my friendships. That is just who I am. And it is interesting though what you're saying, because it's like I have an apartment on the other side of the river from Frankfurt, and it's a very small town. It's a kind of a suburb, and there's a lot of, let's say, foreigners there, like people who obviously are either immigrated in their generation or their first generation people, and oftentimes they're brown. And so there's a kind of a separation between, I guess, like white people and non-white people, let's say, people of color. And I feel like the non-white people just get it. They're just there, like trying to do their thing, like living in a new country, navigating their culture, whatever they need to do. And then white people are kind of just like, I don't understand what the problem is. It's like it's very cliche. I feel like the people around me. And also I have to say, in German, like language around social justice is not as easily, it's like not immediately accessible. It's a very new thing. So there's not enough language for it. There's not a lot of it in German. And so a lot of people just don't have access to having conversations, which means that when I'm there, I'm always the one starting them. I'm always the one that's saying something that people are like, oh, well, what does this mean? And like, oh, well, what do you mean by that? And like, oh, well, why is this upsetting you? And like, oh, why do you care about this? Or why would you say it like this? Or why is this a problem to you? You don't have this problem. And it kind of, as like, it's always kind of me explaining. And that, for example, doesn't feel like home. Like a place that feels like home to me is a place where I don't have to do that. Not that I'm not willing to do it, but if I live in a place where I have to do it in order to even make space for myself to live authentically, it's exhausting and super draining, and it doesn't feel like home. So when we're like going back to that, being in an environment where the relationships that I have built and that I continue to invest in are people and is a community, whether it's digitally or not, that surrounds me, where I'm able to say what I think and I'm able to be fully myself, and people get it and people understand and are encouraging and supporting and warm, that feels like home. And I'm trying to figure out how to build that wherever I go, and how to keep it up when I'm gone, right? Sometimes I have a little bit of like, I love on the friends that I have around me immediately. And then I like don't talk to my other friends. And then I come back to New York and then I focus on them. It's not really sustainable like that. So I need to change that. So yeah, building it step by step.
Yeah, I think this is a super important conversation. because it took me a little while to really understand that. And I've seen the difference that it's made for me when I have created those cohesive communities. And for me, it has been virtual because I've been moving around so much. And just seeing, and that's why I love the work that you're doing with the mixed space, is creating one of those spaces where people can come. And some people refer to it as this idea of your chosen family, like the people who just feel like home to you because they get where you're coming from and you can just fully be yourself. And a lot of the time people don't feel like they can fully be themselves with their families, right? Because we just come through all of these like inherited patterns that cause a lot of friction and triggers. And like, that's just what family is for most people. Some people probably not, but mostly. And to really acknowledge and give ourselves permission to seek that out. And sometimes you can feel kind of like, where do I look, or where do I go, or like, how do I connect with these people? And I feel very fortunate in just, having followed my intuition and obviously traveled a lot and having the experience of being the person who's like alone and doesn't know anybody has really opened me up to meet lots of new people. And I find you do, when you follow your intuition, you do generally end up in spaces where you resonate with other people. And then, like creating those cohesive spaces and keeping those conversations going with people, it creates a sense of groundedness and belonging that like really strengthens you, that when it's not there, it shows up in crazy ways where like you just feel stuck, or things aren't working, or you just have higher levels of anxiety, or you can't focus as well. And so I think it's so important to be having this conversation and recognizing, for everybody who is out there who feels like they're alone in something, or they're suffering, but they haven't been able to identify exactly what is going on or why something feels hard for them, to really like seek those places and spaces where they can have those conversations and be themselves and be able to articulate what it is that they're going through. Because particularly when you bring people together, somebody sharing their experience, you'll like see an aspect of what's going on for you reflected back in their conversation. And it's so healing, and we get to shift and bring light to these conversations so much more quickly. So I love that you're doing this. And like, tell us a little bit more about the conversations that you're having with the mixed space.
Thank you. So we have a meetup on the first Saturday of every month, and the theme changes oftentimes based on what we're seeing happen in the social calendar or National Heritage Month, or movements that are going on. Oftentimes they're connected to the season. We have different ways of kind of landing in the theme of the meetup. So our April meetup just happened, and our May meetup is happening on May 8th. And it's a meetup that we're curating to honor the lives of Asian Americans, to honor the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, also adding Native Hawaiians, and understanding that half of the world's population is fit under this acronym of like AAPINH, which is Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian. And it's like this acronym that people are always fighting about, because it doesn't really include everyone. And it doesn't mean that we're talking about American, but we're not talking about understanding that it's North America. You know what I mean? When we say American, Americans know what that means, but everybody else is like, that's really just one country on a whole continent. Like, can we talk about that there's Asian people everywhere in the world? So it's a big topic, and it's super controversial because it's not fair, because people are experiencing many levels of oppression and marginalization because of history and because of current politics, et cetera. And so we kind of like, we have to bound together to have power. But then when we come together, we feel like there's not enough space for everybody. And as someone who doesn't have immediate access to intimate or close relationships to folks who identify as Asian throughout the entire diaspora, it's really awesome for me every time we have a meetup that focuses on diasporas that I'm not like natively connected to, because I'm like, oh my God, I know so little about so many people in the world. And there are so many languages that, even though I speak a lot of languages, and I'm not even talking about like English or German, like I speak a lot of other languages and have access to a lot of currencies, but there's still so much out there that I'm just completely not even aware of. And it makes me feel so impassioned to be, part of the world and to understand, to keep regaining perspective about where I'm at and where other people are at. And like you said, I mean, it's always an opportunity for people to share. A lot of them don't even realize, like they'll say something in passing and it will be so profound to me, or it will be something that they feel like is a little thing. And to me feels so brave or so novel, and it just changes me. And then it just changes me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the way that I'm so glad I spent 2 hours in community with these people. And I spent a whole, month or longer researching these topics and finding a speaker and curating the space and, inviting, community members, et cetera. And then they go on YouTube afterwards and the videos keep living on. And the conversation keeps living on Facebook group and on Clubhouse and on Instagram Live. And we keep finding, other folks who weren't able to add their perspective into the meetup, and we give space for that. And so really after a month, it's like a whole roller coaster of stories that we've gone through, that we've been able to guide and experience. And then it comes the next one.
Amazing. I love it. So for anybody listening who cares and, about equality and creating freedom for all people, who wants to support the work of the mixed space and help to further your mission and vision, like what are the best ways that we can support you?
Great. Thank you for asking. Definitely follow us on Instagram. Just DM us anything that you want to ask and know about. Definitely find our YouTube at The Mixed Space, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our YouTube videos. Every meetup is up there and there's little clips up there too. So you can get a taste of all of the conversations that have happened in the last almost 2 years that we've been doing this. And otherwise, check out our website and RSVP to the next meetup and keep coming.
And so who are the meetups for? Like, who are the people that you're most excited to encourage to attend, and like who is welcome?
Thank you. Anyone that I say like lives outside of the dominant culture, wherever you are, if you feel like there's a dominant culture, even if it's like you're a skateboarder and you live in a town where everyone does ice hockey, like if you feel like you're outside of the dominant culture, you most likely will find home with us. Anyone who parents a child who looks different than them, anyone who has 2 passports, anyone who speaks multiple languages or who was raised in the household where multiple languages were spoken, if you're in an interracial relationship or intercultural relationship, if you're adopted, if you're neurodivergent, if you're gender nonconforming, if you want to know what majority of people feel like who are around you, because mostly everyone affects one or all of those things that I just said, and you're interested in stories that are often not centered and highlighted, you'll find kind, heart-centered people who will support your learning and your social justice activism.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for coming and sharing about your work today. And you've already told everyone where to find you: YouTube, Instagram, your website. Can you share your handles so that people know how to get straight to you?
Yeah. So the Mixed Space is at, and then the MIXED mixed, and then space SPACE. And my personal handle is actually Lili, which is LILI, and then Stiefel, STIEFEL. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lili. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please leave a review on iTunes. Please like and subscribe to support the show, and we'll see you next week. Bye. For more inspirational content, head over to my website withsarahmac.com, and please support the show by liking, commenting, and subscribing.